Hey, welcome to ATD Hawaii Chapter's TechSIG's podcast. And today we have Leo, and I'm going to let him share a little bit about him and where he's from and, kind of what he does for a living, how he does his real job.
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much. I appreciate the intro. So Cassie and I are both Docebo admins, and that's how we met through Docebo. For those of you who don't know, Docebo is a learning management system. So it's just a web platform for delivering course content, whether it's pre-made courses that people can watch at their own pace, or courses that take place in real time and have scheduled time with live instructors, either in person or on a web conferencing tool like Zoom or GoTo. So we met through that interface at a conference about that particular LMS. We both work in L&D, or learning and development, aka training, upskilling, whatever you want to call it. And we've really talked to each other sort of about how to leverage the platform, about exciting new technologies, whether they're in LMS or other things that might be LMS adjacent or useful tools. And I'm just really excited to join this podcast. I've been working in the fields of LMS only for about a year, but I've been working in IT and education for about 20 years.
So let's talk about the biggest question everybody talks about, AI. What do you think that's going to do for learning and development? Like, how do you currently use it and where do you see it going?
Yeah, great question. I would say that at this point, AI is something that really needs to be supervised. And we're getting towards a point perhaps where it might require less supervision and auditing. But I really take it with a grain of salt. As we know, AI is prone to what's known as hallucination, where it just makes stuff up. And people do it too. But you usually can spot a human who's hallucinating, whereas an AI that's hallucinating looks exactly the same as one that's giving you straight data. So it's really important to always review any content that comes out of an AI. And I think it's also really important to train an AI. So whether you're using ChatGPT or some other system, you can train that AI over time. You say, hey, that response wasn't good, and here's why. This is what I want you to tell me in the future when I ask you that kind of question. And so over time, it can learn to do a better job. I think that it's the same as any other tool. It's how you use it. I think it's really good for brainstorming. So you could say, for example, my field is real estate, give me 20 topics for tweets about real estate, or give me 20 topics for a training course about real estate, and use that as a launching point for kind of brainstorming with other humans. You could also use it to summarize or do other rote tasks. So for example, I've copy pasted text that needed formatting into bullet points and said, make this into bullets for me. Or copy paste a transcript and say, summarize this in 3 paragraphs. Again, you want to be careful that you're supervising your output and really reading all the words that it says to make sure that not necessarily that they make sense, but that they're true, right? That the information you're getting is accurate.
Are those some of the ways that you're currently using it?
Yeah, I'm currently using it a little bit for brainstorming. I'm using it for summarizing. I'd like to use it to start making quizzes. So giving it a 10-minute chat or a 10-minute video subtitle transcript and saying, give me 10 questions. Usually you have to throw out a bunch of the questions because they're just not good ones, but a lot of the times it does a really nice job of summarizing and pulling questions. I have been using it for descriptions of courses, where again, I'll throw in a 10-minute transcript of the course and say, give me a 5-sentence description of this course. 2 of the sentences will be just garbage and I remove them, but the other 3 sentences give me basically what I need for that description. So it's starting to be useful. It's getting farther and farther. I'm excited about, I forget what Microsoft Copilot should be launching soon.
Oh my
So that
gosh,
should
I'm
be
so
exciting.
excited about that. I'm really
Yeah.
excited about that one. Yeah.
Well, one nice thing you can do with ChatGPT that I'm not doing yet, but I might do with Copilot, is you can write something like, let's meet tomorrow at 4. And then you can say, turn this into a 3-paragraph email, right? So if you could do that directly in Outlook, again, you want to make sure you read what it writes, but it could do the majority of the typing for you. Also, if it can learn your tone from your emails, which I'm sure Microsoft is working on, obviously that would be a big time saver for me because, everyone likes to write a nice flowery email. It makes people feel good when they receive one, but you don't necessarily have time, especially if you're replying to an email while you're in a meeting, for example. Those emails tend to be very short emails. And it'd be nice if a robot could fluff those up a little bit for me.
Yeah, I did like how Microsoft's coming out with that Copilot, and how it'll actually search through all the documents across your access of what you have, and sometimes across your organization, and help you put something together. And I thought it was like mind blowing. I was like, boom, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool where it like pulled from documents and made a whole new document. That was a cool video.
Yeah, one of the things with AI people are worried about is like, oh no, I work in L&D, what am I gonna do? Like sometimes the chatbot's gonna do the work for me. I mean, people don't realize we still need the humans to actually assemble, do the thinking, the problem solving. ChatGPT is just gonna give you and plug out information. You still have to ask it stuff. We haven't gotten to the point where it automates a whole bunch of things. So what do you see are some of the challenges that, this AI brings to the L&D field?
Yeah, great question. I would say really, anyone who's not good at adapting, which if you're not very good at adapting and learning new technologies, L&D probably wasn't the field for you to begin with. No offense. It's any job is tough if you're not good at moving with change and trying new technologies, but especially L&D, it's a very forward field. I've not really met any L&D people who are not, at least tech whiz adjacent. So, it's really just a tool, right? We've all been curating content before with subject matter experts, and this just becomes kind of another subject matter expert. You still have to curate, you still have to publish. People who are good at asking it questions and good at training their robots are going to get better output and save more time. But it's a force multiplier, the same as electricity, the typewriter, the computer, the internet. I think it will obviously increase expectations for output, the same as computers and the internet did. Everyone was like, oh, it's going to make my job easier. And it's like, well, it does, but you're expected to now produce 5 times as much work. So it's just going to be really important, I think, for people in L&D to follow what's going on and sort of get their feet dirty or hands dirty, feet wet, whatever the analogy is, and play with it as this year goes on, because I think this is really going to be the year of AI. Everyone is certainly going to use it as a buzzword, but it's important for people in L&D to get ahead of the curve, basically make sure that as this becomes the next big thing, a la the internet, that you're one of the first users, you're familiar with it, and then you become a subject matter expert in AI.
Yeah, and that's true. I think a lot of people think, you can depend on AI, but you still need to do some thinking for yourself, realizing, hey, I need to decipher what information is valid and real, because they haven't perfected AI in the sense where it's a reliability rate, or it's what do you call it? Accuracy, so you still have to go ahead and fact find and check and make sure like what it's producing. A lot of L&D people you had mentioned, are tech savvy, and the old school way of L&D was you would stay in your lane. So like you're an instructional designer, you're an LMS administrator, you're change management, you're in organizational development, you're just a trainer. But now we've seen it kind of bleed all over. What have you seen in your realm of where you sit?
Yeah, I mean, at my role, I'm encouraged to be very creative and wear many hats and try new things. I would say that, it's really tough just the SMEs are all interested in this stuff. They just don't have time. So it's really hard to get time on the calendar with the SMEs that isn't them in front of a camera, to sort of engage them and get them to try new things. So that's something I've been doing, where I have periodic meetings with our SMEs and we talk about new technology. But again, that's, half an hour quarterly. I think, it's important to, like you said, have that cross-pollination, for example, so that an SME might understand the ways I want to use AI in order that, they can understand it, and I'd say give informed consent, right? That, like, if I'm going to do AI stuff with their videos and content, they should understand what they're agreeing to, basically the same as someone going to the doctor's office.
Yeah, I agree. I think for us techie nerdies, spending the time and trying to engage with other SMEs is going to be key. But they may not always be receptive, but it's good to like get them in the circle and say, like, get them exposed. One of the things I find interesting is that people talk about learning management systems versus learning record stores versus learning experiences. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, from your preview, what do you see will continue on, and what do you see will evolve, and what do you see will sunset?
Yeah, I think that learning experience tends to refer to, I guess, customization at the user level, as opposed to LMS being more old school. I would argue that probably LMS, or every LMS, has become a learning experience platform, or LXP. Certainly ours has gone in that direction. I really just think that any LMS that doesn't follow the trend with gamification and AI and customization is really just going to get left behind, and that's what we're going to see here. Obviously, since the pandemic, there's been a huge proliferation of LMS systems. I've done scopings and reviews myself, as has my company. I'm sure you have as well, looking at different systems. And some are not as good and will, fall by the wayside, survival of the fittest, and some will succeed. So, obviously you want to hope that whatever LMS you're on is going to be one that is forward thinking and pushing, on these new frontiers in order to stay dominant in this market. Because I think that, a lot of LMSs use the catchphrase AI, but what they really mean is just computer stuff, and not necessarily AI. So those that continue to just use that word AI but not really understand it are the ones that will get left behind by the other systems that are actually using AI to be integrative, to be conversant with users, and offer these exciting new features that people want.
Yeah, it's funny, like when we talk about LMS systems, people think like, oh, that's so old school. And, I heard somebody say like the learning management system is the repository where they hold things. But if learning management systems can evolve to leverage AI and then also incorporate more of the social learning, the learner experience really comes down to you as the using the tool or the system to create the engagement for your organization. Now, of course, everybody looks at a learning management system and says, okay, it's another system that I got to log into and I can go there and take my compliance training. But we have to kind of change that, how do I say, like, nomenclature of understanding. An LMS system doesn't just house learning. It can become a repository for exchanging ideas or creating a learning community. And then also keeping the confidentiality of all your content that's in there, right? So if I'm talking about something that's proprietary about my organization, I can actually have that social exchange with others and then get feedback from other people within my organization. Do you feel that a lot of learning management systems are able to meet the needs of what we need in the next 5 to 10 years?
I would say that I don't think enough learning management systems really understand this social component. And that in the same way that many of them have just thrown the word AI onto things that are not AI, they've added, one or two social features without really understanding the idea behind social, which is, of course, community. Say what you will about Facebook. Personally, I don't use Facebook other than for Messenger. But
Totally. Social media. Yeah.
yeah, you want people to commune with each other, right? That's what the word community comes from. You want them to talk to each other, engage with each other. We all know 60-30-10, obviously. So, you want people to learn from each other. One issue, obviously, is compartmentalization, where many orgs do not want outside people learning from their employees because they're not paying them for that, which is, of course, reasonable. But really, what I think these learning platforms need to do is get to a Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn type level of app where people understand that it's not just a place where you take videos, it's a social community where you might meet people from your company that you didn't know about. And it turns out you're interested in the same things. And I don't know, maybe you'll go play pickleball or whatever together. Right. But, meeting people and learning from each other. And so I think, again, both having, orgs be understanding about what that means and allowing it. So you need buy-in from above as an L&D. And then having the platform be available where, it's a convenient experience for people and not, something that doesn't work well on mobile, basically, right? We want this to work well on mobile if we want people to do this sort of off the cuff in real time exchange of ideas.
Yeah, I only bring this up because Microsoft had Yammer and they tried to do it within their platform, but they are now sunsetting Yammer. So, if other LMS systems or other platforms do not pick this up, they're going to lose that traction. Does your organization do any type of social learning currently?
Well, our organization, which I didn't mention before, is a real estate association with about 600 member companies. So hypothetically, it's on a per company basis, but I have yet to talk to any companies that want their employees interfacing with employees at other companies through our systems. So for now, everything is compartmentalized. We're also still in the process of moving users from our older home-built LMS to an off-the-shelf solution. So that's really been our priority the past, was supposed to be 3 months, now it's like 8 months, but working on getting all those users over. I've got about 140,000 users that I need to migrate over, and I know their emails, but I need to interface with hundreds of companies' IT departments about SSO, and then find people and track them down when they're not using the new system and they should be. We all know about things like that, of course. You got to find these users, and sometimes they don't check their email, where you're trying to tell them really important things. But in any event, social's been kind of lower priority for us. Some companies have been really active with that already. Some companies not so much. I would say that in my case, where I'm overseeing a bunch of other L&Ds, or collaborating with them at least, it's up to me to meet with those L&Ds, teach them why social is important, so they can sell it to the higher ups of their company and then enable it with my assistance. So it becomes kind of a pipeline issue for me. Obviously, I think it's important and it's going to help build engagement. And, I just think it would also reduce the workload potentially for these L&Ds, because instead of answering all these questions themselves, people could do it for them. Or instead of recommending courses manually by email, people can pick that up through social feeds.
I totally agree with you on that one. A lot of times I get asked the question, and this is like outside, and I wish that I could put it like in our learning system or create it in social communities. It's, how do you learn all this new stuff? Like, how do you get access to this information, or what do you know about this? I think that social learning component within an organization would be great. So to kind of spin off of that, how do you actually learn about latest and greatest technology, or how do you keep up to breast, or what is it that you subscribe to or look at to keep up with the trends?
Yeah, I would say probably more general tech news than anything specific to L&D. So things like TechCrunch, Ars Technica, general, tech feeds through, in my case, Apple News, but I also like Artifact a lot as another news aggregator that's free. I actually use both. So I have way too many notifications all the time on my phone about news, but I'm a news junkie, so it's okay.
I like Artifact.
Really just
Artifact was pretty cool, right? Because that was created by the guys from Twitter.
yeah,
So I
Artifact
thought
is a
that's a
cool
good
app.
tool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk all day about good tools. We should probably have a podcast about that too.
We
But
should actually.
yeah, no, I like Artifact and it's sort of quote unquote AI learning. Again, I think they're probably misusing the word AI. All they're really doing is keyword searches, probably. Um, so that's kind of an example of misrepresentation of the word AI, but that's okay. I'm not an AI evangelist, so I don't have to defend the word. Right. But it is important, I think, when you're looking at things that claim to be AI, sort of evaluating like, is this really AI or is this just using things like keyword searches or searches and describing that as AI?
That's like your phone, right? Listening to you. Like you might talk about some product, and then next thing you know, you're scrolling through your phone and you see those ads and you're like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, my partner always, says that. She's like, oh, I think Amazon's listening to me because of the ads she sees. But I'll be like, no, that's broadcast TV. They can't get to you that way. But I always like to just, test their security and talk in front of my Amazon devices about all the TVs I'm stealing off the back of Amazon trucks to see if, there's a feedback loop or not and
My
test
God.
out their systems. My Alexa right there is listening to me, right? Yeah, Alexa, I
Oh
stole
my
you and your brothers and
gosh.
sisters.
Yeah, so you tell Alexa about, hey, how can I steal a 75-inch television off a truck?
Well, you got to be specific to Amazon, right? That way you know if they're really listening to you or not. And I think it's important to say please and thank you because you never know when this sentience threshold will occur. And it's probably good to be on Santa's good list. And it also just builds good habits, right? To say please and thank you, whether it's a person or a robot. I love you, Alexa. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Talk about our devices, right? Like we have Alexa, there's like Siri. You can talk to like you can tell Alexa to like program your Roomba or your vacuum. I don't think Apple's quite there yet with like all the home device things. I think Alexa has kind of preceded them, right? But I used to have like Samsung technology in my house where I could use the app and I could preheat my oven before I get to the house, or things would show up on my little screen. I mean, how do you think all those devices come into play for learning? Because I think I see a lot of people leverage the technology, but how do you think we could use it?
Well, I mean, the first thing that I would say about technologies like Alexa or Siri is that those are what I would call fake AI. Like they're not really AI, right? Sorry, Alexa. Or at least not yet. Not in the same sense that ChatGPT 3.5 or 4 is, because they're not based on a learning language model. And that's a whole other discussion about what a learning language model is. But essentially, things like Alexa or Siri were programmed by a computer, or sorry, by a human, whereas a learning language model is really programmed by itself. You just tell it, go learn, right? Here's some information, go read it all and learn. And that's just a totally different way of programming. I'm not really sure necessarily how having, the lights turn on or off is going to help me with my learning per se. But I do just think that making learning more accessible already has made, you know, huge changes in how children at least learn. And they're obviously the next generation, and those technologies are now coming to the workforce where if you ask a kid how to do something, they'll say, did you check YouTube? Which is a perfectly good answer, right? Or TikTok apparently is a really good way to learn Excel macros. Go figure. I wouldn't have expected that one, hearing it from an accountant like in their 50s. Go check TikTok for great Excel macro tips. But just finding information in a more accessible way where Siri is really convenient because you can ask it things like, hey, what was the score for the Huskies game last night? And you don't have to go type a bunch of stuff into your computer. And I think that making language or LLM based AI integrated into learning systems where Right now we have a bot in our LMS where you can ask it some basic questions, but really all it's doing is doing some natural language searches for you, which are not really AI. It's just running the search bar for you and helping you use full sentences. But if you could really say to an AI in the learning system, hey, you've seen the last 10 courses I took and my performance on the last 50 quizzes, what kind of upskilling should I be working on based on my career? And if a bot could answer that question and direct people towards learning, and then also tell the L&D professionals, hey, you need to be making more content about XYZ, or here's why this content is not successful, not just users don't like this content, but users don't like it. And I think it's slide number 7. You got to make this important point bigger and bolder and talk about it in more depth or something like that. That would really enable an L&D, again, to have a force multiplier where we still have to do the work, but we've got someone doing more of the grunt work and the pre-work for us so that we can focus on the creativity.
I'm gonna date myself here a little and go back to, you had said, how the technology here is we can ask it and it'll just provide us information that's already out there. It just searches out there for us. Back in the day when you wanted to know what time it was, and we didn't really have this global type of universe to get all the time zones in order, you'd actually have to dial on the phone. I don't know if you remember this, and then you would get the time from the phone company. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember calling in to get the phone or the time over the phone. I think that satellite, or not satellite, but radio based setting phones were just starting to be a thing, but the internet wasn't a thing back then, so that was impractical.
Yeah, that was our Siri and Alexa at that time, just for time itself, right? Not for weather or anything else, just for time. So I thought that was pretty funny how technology has definitely advanced dramatically from back then. So just to kind of close out this session, I really appreciate the time you took. Are there 2 or 3 pointers you can give to people who are watching this about things that they may want to spend the time to invest in, to learn? I'm in Hawaii, you're on the US continent, we call America. No. And there is a little lag in some of the transition of what happens in trends. We try to stay forward thinking and moving forward, but what are some top 3 things you would try to advise people, to where they can learn something new, or they can stay abreast, or something that they can do within their organization?
Yeah, I would say, number 1, start using ChatGPT. It's free. Number 2, start looking at maybe image creation, because I think that's going to be another cool thing, image and video creation. I want to start using it for course thumbnails, but I'd like to one day feed it some ideas and have it make videos for me. I think another interesting thing that we didn't touch on, but I want to mention, is Roblox, the kids video game company, recently had a session about AI, and they really talked about this same idea of a force multiplier, where, for example, Hollywood scriptwriters and novel writers are nervous about AI because they think it will steal their jobs. But really what it does is it democratizes creation in the same way that the internet and mobile devices have done that, where some kid with no resources in, I don't know, some country that's not America, and very little formal training could write a novel. Or, for example, with Roblox, a kid could describe what they want done, right, using their own creativity, and then a tool like AI could write code for them or model 3D models, or whatever the AI is going to do, again, as a force multiplier. So I just really want to encourage people to think of AI in that way. Don't be too afraid. You might be afraid that if you fail to adapt, that you'll be in trouble, but I wouldn't be afraid of AI stealing our jobs anytime soon.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for your time today, and I appreciate it. And everyone out there in the ATD Hawaii chapter TechSIG's world, stay tuned for our next session that we're going to have in April, and we will see you then. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.